So Spotlight is a movie that came out in 2015, and it follows a group of reporters and investigative journalists who uncover findings of several priests in the Boston area who molested children and in the Catholic Church. And this movie is phenomenal. It's on Netflix. I just watched it the other day, and please go watch it if you haven't seen it. If you saw it in theaters in 2015, I'm jealous. It's a movie that stars Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, Lee Schreiber, John Slattery, Rachel McAdams, Stanley Tucci. And this movie just pulls you in right away of the frantic, like, investigative journalism mindset where it just like they get a little clue and then like, oh, and they stay up late and they come in early and it's just like you get your anxiety going and it feels like you're right there. You know, they pull you into that scene. It reminds me of Zodiac and kind of like that parallel with a movie where is the same as Mark Ruffalo in this movie where he's kind of like the lead guy of like the camera following him around and uncovering all this stuff. Jake Gyllenhaal was that in Zodiac of all the murders, and it's just cool seeing that parallel in these movies, especially since Mark Ruffalo was on Zodiac, so that was cool. And there's a scene an hour into the movie where it's called the 6% scene, I think, and they're all held around the telephone talking to this one guy, and initially it was 13 priests that they thought were guilty of these crimes, and the guy tells them, no, it's 6%, and they go, 6% of what? 6% of 1,500. They do the math. About 90 priests they assume have molested kids in the Catholic Church, and they're just like speechless, right? And as the scene starts out, it's close to the camera, and it just pans out slowly but surely. And by the time the scene is almost over, you realize that you see the whole room, and just the magnitude of the scene. It just like it's cool to see the cinematography aspect in these movies where it's like, you know, they're uncovering how many priests are really accused, and it's way more. And the camera's doing the same thing. It's reviewing way more than just the telephone they're talking. So it's like another parallel that I like. It was like the camera just like enhances the scene even more, and that's what I like about these movies and in cinema in general. So that was such a cool like scene and well shot. The character, I forgot his name in the movie, but the actor Brian Darcy James, he finds a priest that lives on his block, and as soon as he finds it, the camera follows him behind him, and you immediately get pulled into his thought process and like his frantic, you know, tone of the scene, and the camera's following him, and then he pulls around, or he runs around the block to see his house, and the camera looks at him and then gives you a shot of the house, and you're just like creeped out by it. It's a neighborhood where a bunch of kids are. His kids obviously live with him in that neighborhood. It's just like just some weirdos out there, and like this is based on a true story. I forgot to mention that. So it's like it's just weird to see a movie that's based on a true story, and this stuff actually happened. So it just kind of makes you sick. This happens during 9/11, which is kind of a bad time for it to happen, because if they would have released a story a week after 9/11, nobody would really pay attention to it, because 9/11 is huge. You know, it's kind of global in a sense, and this is just in the Boston area. So they wanted to wait a couple months after to release it to kind of to really nail these guys and to get the attention that it deserves. And that was in 2001. So it was shot in several settings, which I liked because it kept you engaged. It was like, it was either in a library or like in their office or on the street or in a diner. It was cool to see different settings and tone of the scene they're trying to. I need water. I don't have water. Okay. It was cool to see like the tone they're trying to shoot in the scene about, you know, whatever they're trying to do is like just different settings. It was kind of cool to see, because most movies are, it's like they pick a couple, or you can tell it's just crazy visual effects and, you know, motion capture this and visual effects that and special effects this, and it's like, not that this movie needed all that, but it's like it was cool to see like just different settings. So that's what I really liked. And me growing up Catholic, it was like kind of alarming because I went to the Catholic school for 8 years, got confirmed in the Catholic Church as an adult and in high school, and then as an adult, I don't really practice my religion anymore, but I still believe in some of the stuff. I'm just kind of burnt out, to be honest, and I just haven't gone to church in a couple of years. But it just like it could have happened to anybody because it's just so many weirdos out there, and you don't realize that growing up. My parents were always like, don't talk to strangers, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, but like they're like, oh, they're bad people, but they didn't say, hey, there's people out there that rape and molest and murder, and like you can't say that to a little kid, but like now that I get older, it's like, oh, my parents were right, and I can't imagine just going through that. There's victims that are still alive today and they're really strong, and there's some that committed suicide because they couldn't handle it. It just tears you apart. So this movie shines a light on the bad and shows you the good strength of all the victims that made it. So if you haven't seen it, go give it a watch on Netflix. It's probably one of the better movies I've seen this year, along with Shot Caller. I said that weird. And I forgot a couple other movies that I watched. But anyways, give it a watch, and I'll see you guys later.